Have you ever watched someone disappear from your life? Not slowly, but like the flip of a switch. One day, they're all in. Texting first, laughing at your jokes, making plans, asking about your day, telling you things that made you believe you mattered. And then nothing. No call, no message, no closure. Just silence. Like you never existed at all. It rattles you. You replay conversations. You check the messages. You start asking yourself, was it me? Did I say too much or not enough? But here's what Stoicism will teach you, and what real strength will confirm. People don't vanish by accident. They withdraw strategically. Sometimes it's fear. Sometimes it's manipulation. Sometimes it's just who they are. But silence, it's never random. It's a move, a message, a test. So the question isn't, why are they doing this? The real question is, how will I respond? Because that silence isn't rejection. It's an invitation to rise, to stop chasing, to stop tying your worth to someone else's absence. Your reaction to the silence defines your power. Will you panic and pursue, or pause and rise? Because in the quiet, the fake fall away. The weak reveal themselves, and the real ones, they never leave to begin with. It's not always about you. When someone starts pulling away, the first instinct is to blame yourself. You start asking, was it something I said? Did I come on too strong? Should I have done more? Maybe I wasn't enough. But here's the Stoic truth: you are not responsible for the emotional immaturity of others. Let that settle. Because sometimes people ghost you, not because you failed, but because they didn't have the backbone to be honest. They lacked the maturity to communicate, the strength to face truth, the stability to meet the version of you that's growing. Their silence. It's not your reflection, it's theirs. Epictetus said, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Right now, you have a choice. You can spiral overthinking, blaming yourself, trying to win back people who didn't even offer closure, or you can rise in silence. This video is not about getting them back. It's about getting yourself back. You'll learn 7 brutal but freeing truths about why people leave without explanation, and more importantly, how a Stoic would respond. With stillness, with strength, with self-respect. Because the Stoics weren't just thinkers. They were warriors of the mind. They knew silence isn't a void. It's a mirror. And what you see in that silence, what you do in that silence, determines everything. So if their silence made you question your worth, you're about to shift the question entirely. From why did they leave to why did I tolerate what was never solid? Let's begin. XXXX. Have you ever felt someone pull away from you, not in pain, not in anger, but with cold calculation? They were warm, engaged, consistent, and then off. No call, no reply, no reason, just quiet. But not the kind of quiet that comes from being busy, the kind that watches, the kind that waits for your reaction. Because here's the truth. Some people don't leave because they're done. They leave to see if you'll follow. This isn't confusion. It's a test. A test of your emotional self-control, your need for validation, your willingness to chase, And if you chase, they win. They get reassurance. They get control. They get proof you're still hooked. And they give you nothing in return. This is manipulation through absence. A psychological game disguised as withdrawal. They don't slam the door. They leave it ajar, waiting to see if you'll run through it. They watch for the second message. The "did I do something wrong?" the just checking in, the voice note, the emoji, the reach, because your anxiety. It feeds them. It tells them, I still have power over you. And the Stoics. They would see it for what it is, a trap in disguise. Marcus Aurelius said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. This is that moment. Your instinct wants to react, to fix it, to explain, to pull the rope. But what if you didn't? What if you met their silence with your own? What if you chose stillness over scrambling and self-possession over pursuit? That's where power begins. Think of this like a game of tug-of-war. They've dropped the rope. Now they're watching. Will you tug harder? If you do, they win, because they made the rules and you agreed to play. But if you don't pull, if the rope just lies there still, untouched, unbothered, the game ends. And that's the one move they didn't expect. Because most people chase. Most people panic in silence. Most people prove their dependency without realizing they've already surrendered the frame. But you're not most people. You don't prove your worth through panic. You protect it through presence. Here's the Stoic strategy. Don't respond to silence designed to control you. Because the moment you chase, you confirm the dynamic. You hand them power. You shrink. But when you hold your ground, you send a different message. Your absence doesn't move me, because my worth was never built on your presence. Let me tell you a story. A friend of mine dated someone who vanished every time things got hard. No fight, no explanation. Just vanished. Days. Sometimes weeks. He used to chase every time. Texting, calling, begging for clarity. Until one day, he didn't. The next time she disappeared, he said nothing, sent nothing, did nothing. And a week later, she came back, like nothing happened. But something had changed. Not her, him. He didn't pick up where they left off. He didn't restore the old rhythm, because he saw it now. This wasn't love. It was a test, and he had passed. So what do you do? When someone uses silence to manipulate, you recognize the pattern. It's not about you. It's about control. You resist the urge to chase. Their silence is bait. Don't bite. You reclaim your energy. You pour it into your goals, your growth, your inner stillness. You let their silence speak for itself. You don't narrate it. You don't fill in the blanks. You let the gap remain, unbothered. Because when someone plays this game and you don't play back, they lose. They lose access. They lose influence. They lose the version of you who tolerated the test. And what do you gain? Not the person, not the apology, but something far greater: time, clarity, self-respect. That's what Stoicism teaches. You don't owe anyone an explanation for choosing peace. Your calm is the explanation. Your silence is the answer. So next time someone pulls away, Don't chase. Don't plead. Don't explain. Just breathe. Observe. And let the rope fall. Because freedom isn't found in pulling harder. It's found in knowing when to let go. They didn't leave because you changed. They left because the benefit expired. Let that land. They weren't here for you. They were here for what you gave. Your attention, your validation, your presence, your yes. You weren't seen. You were sourced. And when the source dried up, they vanished. Not out of cruelty, but because the mask couldn't stay on without supply. You see, some people were never connected to your soul. They were connected to your generosity, your consistency, your emotional availability. They basked in your light. But the moment clouds appeared, they disappeared. And now you're left asking, was it all fake? No, it was real. To them, in the only way they know how to connect transactionally. Let's call it what it is, emotional parasitism. They attached to your light to escape their own shadows. And once fed, they moved on. Not because you failed, but because you stopped giving. This isn't a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of their capacity to love. And in some people, that capacity is non-existent. A parasite doesn't understand depth, only extraction. The Stoics understood this clearly. Epictetus said, "Attach yourself to what is true, not to what is temporary." Presence can be faked. Integrity cannot. You didn't lose a relationship. You lost an illusion. And that's not a tragedy. That's clarity. Because anyone who disappears the moment you stop overgiving was never with you. They were with the version of you that fed their comfort and their silence. It isn't rejection. It's proof. Proof that your kindness was real. Proof that your generosity was never reciprocated. Proof that they were built for, need not for connection. But let's be clear. This doesn't mean you stop giving. It means you start giving with discernment. Because when you give endlessly to the wrong people, you attract dependent, not partners. And when those dependents vanish, they don't feel loss. They feel inconvenience. Because they never saw you as a person, just a function of support, a function of praise, a function of escape. And the moment you became human tired, flawed, unavailable, they ghosted. So here's the shift. Don't grieve the absence. Study it. It teaches you who's real. It trains your boundary. It reminds you of this. Your value doesn't drop just because someone stopped benefiting from it. You are not a product, not a fix, not emotional currency. And anyone who treats you like that is not someone you lost. They were a cost. Let me give you a story. A woman I know spent months supporting a friend emotionally, financially, spiritually. Every call. She answered. Every breakdown. She held. Every crisis. She carried. And then one day, she said, "I need space." And what she got was silence. No, "Are you okay?" No thanks. No concern. Just distance. At first, she blamed herself. Maybe she wasn't strong enough, supportive enough, kind enough. But then she saw it. She wasn't a friend. She was a crutch. And when she stopped holding them up, they didn't fall. They just walked away. That's not heartbreak. That's revelation. So here's your Stoic strategy: audit the pattern. Ask, did they show up only when they needed something? Withdraw access without guilt. You're not selfish for protecting your capacity. Invest where energy flows both ways. If it's one-directional, it's not love, it's consumption. Don't become bitter. Become sharper. Being used doesn't mean you're too much. It means you were too available for someone with too little depth. So let them go. Let the silence speak. And let it echo this: the ones who leave when the giving ends were never here to grow. They were here to feed. They're gone now. And now you begin again with clarity, with power, with peace. You didn't change, but suddenly they did. The way they look at you, the silence in their texts, the absence from your life as if everything you built together was made of paper. But here's the most confusing part. You don't even know what happened. There was no fight, no fallout, just distance. And then you hear it. Someone whispered something, said your name in a twisted tone, passed along a version of you that wasn't yours to begin with. And they believed it. Without a question, without a conversation, without giving you the dignity of clarity. They didn't come to you. They didn't ask, is this true? They just shifted. And that's when the pain starts. Not just from betrayal, but from realization. They never truly knew you. Because if they did, a rumor wouldn't stand a chance. The Stoics would say, you have power over your mind, not the minds of others. You can't control what people hear. You can't control who they believe. But you can control how much space they take up inside you. Let me say it clearly. If someone changes how they treat you based on what someone else said, they were never grounded in truth to begin with. They were grounded in convenience, in hearsay, in groupthink. Here's what Stoicism teaches. Truth doesn't chase validation. It just stands calm, clear, and unwavering. You don't have to chase them down to explain. You don't need to fight to clear your name. Because those who value truth will ask. They'll investigate. They'll seek understanding, not drama. But those who vanish with the first rumor, they were never loyal to you. They were loyal to the version of you that made them comfortable. And when that image cracked, they didn't want clarity. They wanted distance. This isn't weakness. It's exposure. Let them leave. Because if they can be turned against you by whispers, they were already halfway out the door. People like that aren't friends. They're followers. And you don't need followers. You need thinkers. People with discernment. People with backbone. People who say, that doesn't sound like them. Let me ask. Not people who say, oh, really, I knew something was off. Let me tell you something harsh, but healing. Every time someone walks away without explanation, every time someone shifts their energy without a word, they are saving you from having to do the heavy lifting later. They are revealing their level of depth, their level of loyalty, their level of mental independence. And often it's painfully shallow. But now you know. You don't need to rage. You don't need to prove them wrong. You don't even need revenge. You need nothing. Let silence do what truth does. Best separate the worthy from the weak. Here's your Stoic strategy. Observe the shift. Don't panic. Distance doesn't always mean loss. Sometimes it means protection. Don't explain to the easily influenced. They've already made their choice. You make yours. Let your consistency be the witness. Truth has a long game. It always outlasts gossip. I once knew a man named David. Steady, loyal, quiet. Until one day a colleague started treating him like poison. No explanation, no feedback, just silence. Later, David found out someone had accused him of disloyalty in a private meeting. Completely false. And yet, that colleague never asked him directly, never sought truth, just swallowed the rumor and moved on. David's choice. He said nothing, did nothing, kept showing up, kept delivering, kept his circle clean. Months later, the same colleague faced the same betrayal from the same person who had poisoned them against David. And only then did they come back too late. Because David, he had already moved on. Not in anger, but in clarity. And that's the key. Don't react to lies. Don't fight in the mud. Just leave the door wide open and walk through a better one. Because here's the Stoic truth. You don't lose anything by losing the people who believed lies about you. You gain silence. You gain peace. You gain an unshakable standard for who gets to stay. They weren't thinkers. They were followers. Let them follow someone else. You. You keep walking toward truth. There comes a moment when the game stops. When you stop apologizing for needing space. When you stop explaining why you said no. When you stop flinching every time someone throws guilt in your direction. And in that moment, they realize something terrifying. You've cut the strings. They can no longer control your reactions. They can't predict your moves. They can't guilt you into submission. And so, they leave. Not because you hurt them, but because they lost their grip on you. Think of it like a puppet show. As long as the strings are attached, the puppeteer pulls and the puppet dances. Every time they sigh, you rush to comfort. Every time they guilt, you backtrack and apologize. But the day you say, "That's not mine to carry," the strings fall, and you stand on your own feet. The puppet becomes a person, and that is when they walk away. Because they weren't looking for a person, they were looking for control. Some people don't love you. They love the version of you that feels easy to manage. They love you as long as you're soft, silent, self-blaming. But the moment you assert yourself, when you hold a boundary, when you stop explaining your worth, when you stop showing guilt, their affection turns cold. Because for them, love was never about respect. It was about leverage. The Stoics would smile here. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is to be unlike your enemy." When someone tries to control you with emotional strings, the most powerful thing you can do is not pull back, but to stand still. To no longer respond out of fear, to no longer beg to be understood. Because when they can no longer manipulate you, they have two options: change or disappear. And most choose to disappear. Not because you did wrong, but because you finally did right. Let me paint a picture. You used to over-explain every choice. Every no came with 10 reasons. Every moment of space you asked for came with guilt. But something changed. You stopped justifying. You stopped apologizing for needing peace. You simply said, "This is my limit. Respect it." And suddenly, they vanished. At first, it stung. You thought maybe you were being too harsh, too cold, too distant. But over time, you saw the pattern. The moment you became clear, they became absent, because they were never there for mutuality. They were there for management. Here's the truth. People who rely on guilt lose interest in people who gain clarity. The less reactive you become, the less interesting you are to manipulators. Because silence, boundaries, non-reaction, they break the game. Let's get tactical. Here's your Stoic strategy. Don't explain what's self-evident. If someone can't respect your no, they don't deserve your yes. Expect the pushback. When you cut emotional strings, they'll accuse you of changing. Let them. You didn't change. You just stopped being easy to bend. Never reattach what you've cut. Don't soften out of guilt. Don't chase closure. Don't pick up the phone when silence was your boundary. I once knew a woman named Ava. She spent years being emotionally available, always putting others first. One day, she told a friend, "I need time for myself this weekend." The response? Silence, coldness, withdrawal, no concern, no respect, just distance. Because for the first time, Ava didn't play the role. And when she didn't, they left. Months later, that same friend reappeared, not to reconnect, but to probe, to test. But Ava had changed. She didn't answer the guilt. She didn't over-explain her piece. She just stood firm. And that's when I saw it. She wasn't lonely. She was free. Here's what to remember. If your strength makes someone walk away, they were never there for your strength. They were there for your compliance. They weren't partners. They were puppeteers. But now, the strings are on the floor, and you are standing tall. Let them go. Let the silence echo. Let your freedom expand. Because if they leave when you stop being easy to control, you didn't lose a person. You lost a prison. And that is liberation. Have you ever noticed this strange silence? When something good happens in your life, you hit a milestone. You break through. You level up. And the people who used to clap the loudest go quiet. No congratulations. No excitement. Just absence. Not because they're busy. Not because they forgot. But because your growth made them uncomfortable. Here's the harsh truth. Not everyone disappears when you fail. Some disappear when you succeed. Why? Because your rise makes them feel the weight of their own stagnation. Your discipline exposes their laziness. Your healing magnifies their chaos. Your focus highlights their distraction. And instead of facing it, they vanish. Not out of hate, but out of shame. The Stoics understood this long before we did. Seneca wrote, "Associate with people who will make a better man of you, not people who get jealous when you become one." Some people want you growing, but only if it's slower than them. Some want you to win, but only if your win doesn't shine too bright. And the moment your light reaches into their darkness, they retreat. Because now, They can't ignore the mirror. It's not that you did anything wrong. It's that you did something different. You broke the script. You stopped playing small. You stopped dimming your light to make them feel okay. And that's the problem. Because your light was never the threat. Their unwillingness to grow was. Let me give you an image. You and someone else are climbing a mountain. You start gaining ground, pushing harder, breathing deeper, taking on new challenges. And instead of climbing with you, they sit down, not because they can't move, but because they don't want to. And now, you're a reminder. Every step you take whispers to them, you could have kept going, but they didn't. So instead of celebrating your view, they resent it. Here's what Stoicism teaches us. Don't shrink to be digestible. Let others choose to rise or fall away. Marcus Aurelius said, "Just that you do the right thing. The rest doesn't matter. Not applause, not comfort, not their validation. Just the right thing. And the right thing is to grow, relentlessly, deliberately, even if it means walking alone for a while. Your only job is to evolve. Let people fall away if they must, because those who vanish in the face of your strength were never meant to walk beside it. Real people, they see your glow and feel inspired, not intimidated. They rise with you, not away from you. Here's your Stoic strategy. Notice the silence. If success brings distance, it's not your failure, it's their fear. Don't dim your light. Growth isn't arrogance. It's discipline. It's courage. Keep going. Let them fall back. Not everyone's journey is meant to align. Let time filter the genuine from the jealous. I once worked with a man named Eli. Humble, quiet, focused. Over 2 years, he built something incredible, a business that gave him freedom, peace, purpose. But as his success grew, his circle shrank. One friend stopped calling, another stopped showing up, and the last one, he said it outright, "You've changed." And Eli responded with 5 words, "I'll never forget. I was supposed to." That's Stoic power. You're not here to stay the same just to make others feel safe. You're here to become what you were meant to be, even if that means outgrowing who they needed you to be. So if someone disappears while you evolve, don't chase them. Don't explain. Don't apologize for the light you've earned. Because those who belong in your life, they won't run from the brightness, they'll walk toward it. And the ones who can't, they'll simply return to the dark, where it's easier to stay asleep. Sometimes, the end of a relationship doesn't come from a betrayal, or a big fight, or a loud goodbye. It comes in silence. The silence that follows after you finally see someone for who they really are, not who they pretended to be, not who you hoped they were, but who they always were beneath the charm, beneath the words, beneath the disguise. And suddenly, you don't unsee it. You can't. The moment clarity arrives, comfort ceases, and so does the illusion. You saw the lie, so they disappeared. Not because you changed, but because you finally saw them. It wasn't your strength that pushed them away. It was your vision. The second you stopped being blind to their manipulation, to their double standards, to their subtle lies and twisted truths, they had to leave. Because some people don't thrive in connection, They thrive in confusion, and once the fog lifts, they know the game is up. Let me put it like this. They were wearing a mask. For days, months, maybe years. A mask of kindness, of loyalty, of care. But slowly, the seams started to split. You noticed the tone behind their compliments, the conditions behind their support, the quiet resentment in their silence. And then, one day, you saw it all. You saw the puppet strings, the guilt tactics, the quiet selfishness behind the smile. You didn't attack. You didn't accuse. You just saw, and that was enough. Because people who depend on deception can't stand in the light of truth. The Stoics knew this. Epictetus said, "It is not the things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them." But what if your opinion was based on a mask? What if everything you thought was love was actually attachment, laced with control? What if loyalty was just a strategy to stay close as long as you played your role? And the moment you stepped out of that role, they stepped out of your life. That's not your failure. That's your freedom. Here's the Stoic principle. Truth does not destroy what is real. It only removes what is false. You didn't break anything. You revealed it. And what broke after that was never solid to begin with. Don't mourn what was fake. Be grateful it's gone. Let me share something with you. I knew a woman, her name was Lee. She had a friend for years. Supportive, present, loyal, until Lee got a promotion. Until Lee started dating someone new. Until Lee started saying no. And suddenly, that friend grew distant, cold, passive-aggressive, withdrew support, started rumors. At first, Lee was confused, but then she saw it. This wasn't a friend. This was someone who needed her small, someone who felt powerful when Lee was struggling, who only clapped when Lee stayed behind. And when she didn't, the mask cracked, and the person underneath didn't look anything like a friend. This is what growth does. It doesn't create enemies. It reveals them. Here's your Stoic strategy. Accept what is revealed. Don't fight to restore what was never real. Don't seek revenge. People who lie already punish themselves with fear. Let them go without hate. Their exit was their truth. Your stillness is your power. This part is crucial. You might still miss the version of them you knew. You might grieve the mask, not the person. That's okay. But remember, it's better to hurt from truth than to live comforted by a lie. It's better to lose someone fake than to hold on to a fantasy. And it's always better to walk alone in honesty than to stay surrounded by deception. So, if someone left after you finally saw who they were, don't regret it. Don't chase. Don't plead. Don't shrink back into blindness just to feel less lonely. You saw the truth. That's growth. That's clarity. That's peace. Because now you're free to build something real with people who wear no masks. Not everyone who walks away from you is a loss. Some are leaves in autumn, meant to fall, meant to clear, meant to make room for what's real to grow. It might hurt, it might confuse you, it might leave a cold silence where once there was laughter and familiarity, but that silence is sacred. It's the whisper of the divine, clearing your path. You see, You thought they were meant to stay. You thought the connection was real, the loyalty unshakable, the presence permanent. But fate had other plans, because not every person in your life is meant to walk with you into every season. Some were only meant to walk with you for a stretch, a chapter, not the whole book. It's not punishment, it's purification. And sometimes it's not about who left, it's about what their absence makes possible. Because when people disappear without closure, without explanation, without any sense of decency, it reveals something deeper. They were never solid to begin with. They weren't chosen connections. They were default ones, circumstantial, conditional, and life in all its silent wisdom filtered them out before they could take more space than their character deserved. Think of a sieve, a simple kitchen tool. When you pour flour through it, the clumps stay behind. The fine, useful grain passes through. Life works the same. When challenges shake you, people fall away. And the ones who remain are the ones worth building with. Seneca once wrote, "Associate only with those who make you better." But life often makes that choice for you. When you don't have the strength to walk away from draining people, life will let them walk away from you. Not out of cruelty, but mercy. Here's a perspective shift. That silence you resent right now, that's the filter working. That's the pruning of your life tree. It's not rejection. It's refinement. It's not abandonment. It's alignment. I remember a man who used to be surrounded by friends, always invited, always seen. But the moment he started choosing discipline over parties, self-respect over approval, vision over distraction, one by one, the invitations stopped. And so did the friendships. At first, he thought, was I too intense, too serious, too committed to growth? But the truth was simpler. He outgrew their comfort zone, and they couldn't stand the mirror he became. This is where Stoicism becomes more than philosophy. It becomes survival. Marcus Aurelius taught, accept whatever comes to you woven in the pattern of your destiny, for what could more aptly fit your needs? What if that silence is perfectly tailored for your evolution? What if those exits were doors opening elsewhere? Here's how. A Stoic sees departure. They're gone. Good. That means they couldn't fake it forever. They went silent. Perfect. Now you can hear your own voice more clearly. They didn't say goodbye. Even better. Closure is internal, not external. And here's the most divine part. You didn't have to fight. You didn't have to force. You didn't even have to ask them to leave. They filtered themselves out when your frequency shifted beyond their comfort. Let them go. Let the filter do its job. Let the dead leaves fall. Because what remains after the storm, after the noise, after the silence is gold. People who choose to stay, not because they need something, not because they fear losing access, but because your presence, your truth, your light is enough. So next time someone disappears without reason, smile. That was the divine filter at work. You didn't lose them. You gained clarity. You gained room to breathe. You gained space for real ones to enter. Don't mourn the absence of the wrong ones. Make room for the presence of the right ones. And trust this, anyone who walks away because you're healing, growing, or evolving was never meant to stay in your future. You were never abandoned. You were refined. If someone can walk away from you without explanation, without empathy, without even looking back, then let them go. Not out of bitterness, not out of pride, but out of self-respect. Because the moment someone chooses silence over honesty, distance over clarity, disappearance over connection, they are telling you something without words. They are telling you, I don't value you enough to stay. And that is all the closure you'll ever need. See, it's not that you didn't matter. It's that their capacity to love was never deep enough to hold you. So don't carry their departure as proof that you weren't enough. Carry it as evidence that you were too much for someone who was never ready to meet you fully. Here's the truth. Anyone who truly loves you doesn't weaponize silence. They don't disappear to teach you a lesson. They don't create confusion as a form of control. Because love, real love, is clear. It's consistent. It's present. So if someone leaves and it shakes your core, ask yourself, do I want to fight for someone who so easily chose my absence over my presence? Do I want to anchor my self-worth to someone who let go without a second thought? Or do I want to reclaim my peace? Because peace doesn't live in chasing ghosts. Peace lives in surrender. Let them go. With grace, with silence, with the strength of someone who knows their value is not up for negotiation. You're not walking away from love. You're walking towards self-respect. You're not giving up. You're standing up. If you're watching this, and you're in the middle of letting someone go, someone who once meant the world but now feels like a memory fading, just remember this: letting go isn't failure. Letting go is peace. So if that's where you are right now, drop it in the comments. Letting go is peace. Let the world know you've chosen yourself. If this message resonates with your spirit, if you're on the path of becoming unshakable, mentally calm, emotionally grounded, quietly powerful, then this is your place. This is your path. You're not alone. There's an entire community here choosing stillness over chaos, depth over noise, and self-respect over emotional games. So take a moment, breathe, hit the like button if you felt even one truth echo inside you. Subscribe if you're ready to stop reacting and start mastering. And if you're willing, share your story in the comments. Tell us, who disappeared from your life? How did you handle it? And what did you learn about them and about yourself? And if you're looking to go even deeper, to become even more untouchable, watch these next 2 videos: How to be mentally untouchable, why Stoics never react first. Your journey to quiet power is just beginning. We walk it with you. See you in the next lesson.